David Goodwin.
Why?
Aaron Pierce.
And Ella Weddergren.
So I'll just start off this little convo here, and I'll just ask the question. So, what is? How do you think mental health plays, or what type of role do you think mental health plays within the books, each books, such as the Bell Jar and
So
the Catcher?
I read the Bell Jar, and I think that it's like the main, like, kind of focus as you get into the book, because she's battling depression and just like not really wanting to be here. Everything's going wrong in her life, and so she has to go to a couple asylums, and that's how like mental health is just like a big point in the book. If you like, that's what it's about.
In my book, Catcher in the Rye,
I read that.
nice. Holden, who's the main character, tries to find ways to deal with the grievance of his brother's death, and he just becomes really depressed throughout the book, and he tries to fight the depression, but most of the time it just makes him more depressed as he goes through.
Yeah, and like I agree with that, and also the fact that like you can tell throughout the book, like not at the beginning of the book, but you can tell as the book goes on, like Holden's perspective and his kind of his depression and loneliness, like kind of they push him to do um, certain things throughout the book, such as like calling up anybody he can get his like hit their number, or like even just talking like calling up a hooker, but then just talking to them, or just even calling up a teacher who he failed their class and
So
like asking for like asking to stay at their place. What was it, Mr. Antonio? I'd say
Yeah.
Mr. Antonio, but he just he would, because I think his depression really stemmed from, well, first off, his grievance with his brother's death, but also his loneliness that he experienced um, from constantly having to move schools and everything like that. Even though he got to know people, he'd never really experienced, like, I'd say, like a true friendship.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you go.
And he looks for like these so-called like friends and to deal with his depression, but none of them really know how to help him as a person.
Okay, what were you saying, Ella?
Shoot, what were you saying? Oh, so he would call people like. Does he just need someone to talk to?
I'd
about
say
stuff?
so, because I mean, and
Like he was
I
in a
wonder
psych
if
ward or anything, was he?
no, he was never in.
Asylum.
No. But how does that? Do you think in the Bell Jar that she's ever trying to reach out for someone, and she's ever trying to? Is she ever really like trying to connect with someone because she's in need of connecting?
I mean, a couple times she tries to connect with like different people, but she's kind of like a lone bird. Like she wants to be left alone and deal with it herself. Like poor me, my life sucks. Like when her mom comes, she gets
Martyr?
really mad. Huh?
Would you describe her as a martyr, or
A martyr.
like somebody who's like poor me, who's kind of like pity party?
I thought a martyr was like a religious person that killed himself or that died for their whatever. She, yeah, whatever you said, but yeah, she is like a pity party. It's all like, oh, my life sucks. She has like multiple times where she like says, oh, I could kill myself this way, or I could do this, but then she never does it. So I think she's actually really scared and just wants a way out. Like it's called Bell Jar because she feels like she's stuck under a bell jar. Like, do you know what that looks like?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah,
it's just like a dome.
Yeah, it's
With a little knob to pull it up. But so she feels like she's stuck under it, and like she can't get out, and that's just like all her depression and madness inside of it. And she says that everybody's stuck in their own bell jar. So yeah.
Well, a big like there's I mean obviously mental health is the main theme of both books, but I feel like through reading Catcher, I definitely experienced like a definitely like an off not like an off topic theme, but a minor theme of kind of sex and women throughout the book.
Yeah.
And is that the same for you?
I mean, there's like, it's a lot about how she's going to like you should save your virginity for when you're married and stuff like that. And then her longtime boyfriend didn't, but they were like broken up for a bit. He didn't, and he was kind of like, she'd been with a couple men, and so he was like making her feel bad for being with a couple men when really he's the one who had already had sex with other people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about that because it's big when she finally does lose her virginity. So there's a lot about her like having sex and stuff.
Yeah, and in our book, Holden, he gets really annoyed with people when like he's talking to them in person, but from his point of view, if like those like attractions to people makes him actually like someone and makes it so he can like be around them. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
Like,
I agree because like he hates people like Sally, and he hates like the only person. Sally's a girl he goes on a date with, but like the only person I think he truly likes besides outside his family would be Jane, and like there was he like said it himself. He's like, she's not very attractive at all, which I think a lot of like I think physical attractiveness is like the only thing that really gets Holden into like liking people. But also I want to say like I don't know if Holden's like kind of branching out, or like he likes to talk about sex and he likes to do that because as like a conversation starter with guys, even though he's never had sex in his life. Is he like just something he wants to reach out and talk to, like old Lucy, and how he like old Lucy's like, oh man, like lost my virginity at 14, and like all this stuff, talks a lot of game, and how like Holden's just like kind of wanting to talk to him just about it, just to have someone to talk about, or just have someone to talk to, and or just women in general, how he like. I don't know if he really wants to have sex, but he just wants to have a connection, whether it be like
that's what
through sex or like through, because like Lucy talks about sex being like not only he's dating like this Chinese woman, and how they like refer to sex as not only like a physical bond but of like a mental bond. I think like even though Holden rejects that notion at the moment, Holden in reality is really striving for something like that, and maybe more through the mental side than the physical side.
I think that in both books, like from what you're saying, that they're lacking the relationship side. Like that could help them not be as depressed. They don't have a strong like relationship with anyone really. Like Esther's always, she says that she's never gonna get married, and like she's not really friends with many people. Like her closest friend, I would say, is Dr. Nolan. And then who's your guy? What's his name?
Holden.
Holden. He doesn't really sound like he's got like a strong relationship with anyone.
Have a lot of friends, yeah, and like he doesn't really. Yeah, I gotta be honest. He doesn't have like close friends.
So I feel like that's the missing link in there.
Like not even like a relationship with like that like next or the other sex. It's just a relationship, a strong relationship in general.
Mm-hmm.
Whether,
I think Holden more like looks towards sex for like to like fit in with the community, like to like help him cure his depression. I don't know like if it's like because that's like when he turns to solve it. I don't know. It's just an observation I had.
Yeah. Another minor theme I also saw throughout our book was loneliness, and I can definitely tell it's a big theme with the Bell Jar, because she kind of wants to be lonely, but Holden like I don't really. He is lonely, definitely, and like it's a big. I guess it's a bigger problem for him, because he definitely doesn't want to be lonely, but you can definitely tell like when he's lonely, he's depressed as hell, and like he doesn't like to be lonely at all, and he likes to be with other people.
Yeah, he acts fine around people, and then like once they leave, they'll be like, "Oh, this person's like really annoying, and I really hate them." But when when he's next to him, he acts normal.
And it was definitely like you could tell at the beginning like he, what's his name, Ackley? Yeah, Ackley. He like talked so much crap on Ackley at the beginning, but yet when he left Pensy, like Ackley was seemingly to be like one of the only people that like was able to or was willing to talk to Holden and like Holden, and the fact that Holden would like still remain like have good conversations with Ackley during the end during the end of his time at Pensy, and yet he would still like talk a whole bunch of shit on him, or not shit, talk a whole bunch of baloney on him.
Yeah, and I
Pardon
think
his
that,
friend.
Yeah,
I think that also that ties back to like the friendship thing where he kind of strives for that connection with someone, so he can, because he believes that will like help him feel better as a person.
What about the bell jar?
I mean, yeah, she doesn't really like people like to be around them. Like, she doesn't really even. I mean, like her mom, her brother is away. Her dad died when she was 8, so that's kind of where everything started for her, like
So,
trickling downward.
There's also kind of like this theme of having death, or death be a real
Real key factor. of
real
every
key
person.
factor in how they act emotionally and
Yeah.
how they are mental state. But okay, continue with.
Yeah. So, she's just, I don't know. When she has the scholarship and she's in the Amazon Hotel, like, she's like, I really hope she doesn't come back. Like, I don't want her to be in my room again. And she ends up leaving. Her friend Doreen always finds a guy at the bar. And so she always ends up leaving Doreen. Because Doreen's, like, with the guy, and she's like, well, I don't even want to be here anyways. And, like, she never really knew what to get at the bar, so she's just like, oh, I'll get vodka. Like, vodka seems fine. And, like, she didn't really want to be there. She liked being by herself.
As far as like obviously we've discussed key factors, and
Yeah.
do you think there's also been key factors that kind of not necessarily, because by the end of Catcher I could tell like he couldn't like he didn't change necessarily when he talked to Phoebe.
Who's Phoebe?
Phoebe was his sister.
Okay.
So he met up with her, had a little talk with her, and then he said he was gonna leave forever and he was gonna go westward. But I could tell like when obviously he was a mess when Phoebe was like, I'm going with you, and no, like he didn't want Phoebe to go with him.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think there's ever a moment in the Bell Jar where like she changed?
She changed.
Yeah, like
Definitely, like, so she got a scholarship to go to this magazine company where they help, like design
Help you
it and like publish, yeah, and write it.
That's nice.
And so she was there and she seemed fine. Like she was just kind of lonely, like a loner, like to be by herself. But she like talked to people. She was friendly with everyone. And then she went home, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait till I get home because the letter that I like got accepted, my writing got accepted, will be there." And then when she gets home, her mom tells her that she didn't get accepted, and then that's when everything starts to kind of go downhill. She is like, "I'm gonna write a paper," and then puts it off. She's like, "I'm gonna go back to school," and puts it off, and then she just gets depressed after that. So. Yeah, she changed from there.
Well, I mean, also there's points in time where I thought he would change, like when Mr. Spencer was talking to him and was like, "You need to clean up your act, Sonny." At the beginning of the book, I thought maybe like, oh, like this dude's gonna not flunk out of school, or when Maurice kicks the butthole out of him, when like I thought like, oh wow, like maybe he's gonna change his mindset because this dude beat him up for not paying the hooker the right amount. But like I don't know, I really didn't see any change with him, and I still don't think even if he goes to another school, I'm uncertain if like Holden will really get his grades up and really like connect with anybody. I think in my personal opinion, I think he'll stay the same.
Okay, I have a question, just kind of
Yeah.
about, like, how did you think this book was? Like, reading it, like, how did you feel? Like, just over the general ending and everything too.
Like, well, sometimes I question like my own sanity when I was reading this, just because it was funny. Yeah, you were like looking at me weird, but like it's like because when I read through some of this, like the things he would say, and I would honest to God like think I'm like this sounds like every teenager. This sounds like
what was something?
like I don't know. He'd be like, "This really sucks, man," or like something like that, and like or he oh the funny thing is when he would call people phonies but then he would do the same action such as like I don't know I couldn't point out a specific time when he was like it's like oh like somebody's a phony and then he did the same action but like it's kind of like I compare it to like when people say oh that's fake um
It broke.
I don't know but so when people say like oh that's so fake of you but then they do the same thing it's kind of like it's like I don't know I can see how like I could compare Holden's thoughts to an average high schooler's today.
Cause us, cause we are teenagers, we don't really like see that we're like doing the same things in our lives. But when we read it in the book, you notice it, and then you realize, oh wait, I'm kind of like,
I'm similar.
Yeah, you're similar to that. And I just made that connection in the book because at first I'm kind of like this guy's kind of like goes on rants all the time, and then but it made me like self-evaluate myself and how I act.
Yeah. My overall like it was morbid reading it. She'd always talk about death about like a tombstone. Like I don't know what she was talking about. But she like brought up a tombstone. Like the writing on a tombstone, like it's just random stuff, but like they're related back to death. She's talked about like dying and then like being under the bell jar, like not being able to escape, and then just like the thought after watching the BBC's like Madhouse, that made me like I don't know. Asylums like were a terrible place, I guess. Like I think it looks like it was a bad place, even if you had a mental like lapse where you had to be there.
I also think like in the book like he doesn't really talk about death that much but there's one point in time where he went into the park the Central Park and sat on the bench and he was like it was really cold out and he was like oh what if I got pneumonia and died on this bench right here and he started well like first it was like a natural thought and like you two have had these thoughts too, like of like, or not these thoughts, but like a thought at least of like how would like people feel if I died?
Right.
Yeah.
Like would people come to my funeral?
Would people care if I died? And then, so he was like, first, my mother would be hysterical. She'd probably be more nervous than ever. I don't know how his dad would react. He didn't really talk about his dad, but and then like he would be like, oh Phoebe and DB would be so sad. And then all of a sudden, like, he really doesn't, like, he goes off this weird tangent. And he'd be like, I would hate, and then he would be like, I hate it if they would bury me because I don't like it when people leave flowers when I'm dead.
Oh,
and it would be like, he would have very serious thoughts, and then it'd go on weird tangents.
Well, I thought they didn't ever talk about, like, after death for her, but, like, she talked about committing suicide a couple times, and she attempted. But then her friend actually did succeed and hung herself. But, she, like, just when people, like, are thinking about suicide, they're only thinking about themselves and, like, a quick way to get out. When really, like, they don't see who it affects, like, outside of that. Like, your siblings, your parents, your friends. Like, it affects so much more than just you. I don't know. So, like, in that sense, it's a little bit selfish when you take your own life. But, like, I could never understand, like, why someone would do that because I'm not in that state of mind.
Yeah. So, Erin, I mean, she kind of explained earlier what the meaning of the bell jar is with her, and, like, how it kind of relates to the mental illness part of it. But, with Catcher in the Rye, like, what's your opinion on, like, the title, and how do you think it relates to, say, the topic of mental health?
Like the title itself?
Yeah, the title itself.
Like, what's the rye?
Well,
Yeah.
The Catcher in the Rye. So like, it's all based off this poem that he, like a poem that he's read, and it's like about like kids that would jump off like a cliff, and so Holden was like Holden hasn't really had a job, and so he said Holden's job he wanted to just catch kids that would fall off the cliff. So he'd be the catcher, and like
Oh,
the
okay.
poem I don't know what it's called. I need to get my book out, but it was called something something in the rye, and so Holden wanted to catch the kids coming off the cliff, so he'd be the catcher in the rye.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I mean I could have a theory of what relates to like the topic of mental health. Maybe it's just because like it like the only thing Holden like it would him catching the children would like I mean not to say Holden's a child, but like he is a child actually. But
Adolescent.
Holden really connects with children, and that's like something I see at the end of the book a lot. That like when he's leading those two boys to the museum and talking to Phoebe, like the only one thing where like or the only people like Holden is mentally stable with are children, and so
Is it because they have a less mental capacity? Like they're
I don't
just-
know, but there's something about children that make him like I don't know if it's seem mentally stable, but like something about children make him just mentally stable to begin with, or like
Or maybe
he
they
just has a
don't-
better time connecting and talking to children than he does with adults.
Do they not look at him like adults might look at him like he's stupid? Like that's how people did look.
Not
at
really.
Mr.
And Holden's definitely like he puts himself off as stupid, but he's definitely smarter than his grades would like have you think he is. And so I don't know. That's what I thought. But
I thought he connects with children more because they haven't really had to deal with like any of the mental stuff he's had to go through. So
Yeah.
maybe he wants to like save them from going in the exact same route that he did, falling to depression. But or maybe he is. It's like what you said, where they're pure, and maybe Holden just wants to feel pure again.
Oh, that was kind of a theme in our book a little bit.
well, that was our discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.